I want to take you back about 4 years ago. I spent nearly all of my free time creating, except I wasn't ever finishing songs and I felt kind of stuck with my production skills. I mean, look at all of these projects here. And this isn't even like half of it. I don't even think this is like a quarter of it. This is just one band that I was in. But fast forward to today, I make a living documenting my production process on YouTube, and for some reason, people tune in. I feel super lucky because the 99% of you that tune in all the time are super nice and leave a lot of really nice comments. But here's what I've noticed that I think is interesting. When I make a video about making a song, a lot of the comments aren't actually about the final result, the song itself. A lot of them are about the process. By the way, if this is the first time that you are seeing my face and you have no idea who I am or what I'm talking about, there will be a playlist down in the description of everything that I'm talking about here. But the point of this video, I want to share with you how I've come to build a process and how you can build a process that works for you as well. Now, obviously, everyone's process is different. I am not here to teach you my specific process. I'm here to help you find your process. Now, let's take it back again 4 years ago. Like I said, I was making a lot of music, but I wasn't finishing any music. I didn't really know where to point the finger on why my process wasn't working. I was trying to watch a ton of tutorials on how to make better music. I thought, oh, maybe my gear is inadequate. Maybe it's outdated. Maybe it's my plugins. Maybe I just suck. After reflecting, I realized it's not because of my outdated gear, which, by the way, still using here. It wasn't because I needed more plugins. It wasn't because I suck. It was literally only because I wasn't aware of my creative process. And I never really reflected on how I create. I never stopped to think why certain things slow me down. You know, what things am I good at? What things do I suck at? But because I never reflected on these things, that made me realize why music production feels so overwhelming. So what I did was I opened up my journal, not this one. My other journal is much bigger than that.
What is this? Journal.
And as boring as it sounds, I began auditing my creative process. From the moment that I went into my creative session, I just started writing out my experience. What time of day did I start my session? What was my energy like when I started? What was my overall goal for the session? What did I get stuck on? What time did I finish the session? And most importantly, how was I feeling by the time that the session was done? And I want to make this really clear. This isn't about just notating all of the bad stuff. I had to ask myself as well, what was I really good at? You know, what felt easy? What brought me joy? And just becoming aware of my process and all of these things, it was like a creative reality check. So then from there, I just started trying to close the gaps. If I didn't know how to do something, how was I going to approach that? Which brings me to my next topic here. Knowing what you need to work on and how to work on it can be really, really, really hard. I mean, I don't know what I don't know, right? So how am I supposed to bridge the gap? Let me show you something that I do, and I think it helps a ton. So this is like my ultimate problem solver. Usually I do this with pen and paper, but just for the sake of exercise, we'll do it here in free form. I'm gonna start out with a problem that I had in music production. I wasn't finishing songs. Okay, so this is the annoying part of breaking this down, and it's so annoying how well it works because you can literally throw any problem that you have at this. But all you have to do is ask why until you can't ask why anymore. So essentially, I'm just gonna trickle this down. I wasn't finishing songs. Why wasn't I finishing songs? I'm getting stuck in 8-bar loops. Okay, and I'll just connect this. So then the next question, why was I getting stuck in 8-bar loops? You know, maybe it's because I didn't know how to structure songs. Because, you know, if you know the infamous trap of getting stuck in loops, it's hard to move left or right from the loop itself, right? Because we don't know where to go with the structure usually. Okay, well, I got to ask again, why? Why don't I know how to structure songs? And that's a simple one because at the time, I never learned how to structure songs. And bam, that's where our problem is. Just because I never learned how to properly structure songs As obvious as that sounds to hear, maybe you're watching this, hearing that, and being like, well, duh, if you don't know how to structure a song, how are you going to know how to finish one? But trust me, I've coached enough musicians to know that this is a problem that most people don't know how to address. It may sound obvious to you, the person watching this right now, but this is a really common problem that most beginner producers don't realize that they're in. And then even from this, we can still go deeper. Why did I never learn how to structure songs? Because I didn't know that this was something you had to learn or even could learn. I just assumed that most people just kind of make it up as they go, right? Which there's nothing wrong with making things up as you go. But why? Why didn't I know that? Well, I think of the things that I was trying to learn and what I was going on YouTube for. I spent more time trying to learn how to mix instead of structure. Very, very real problem here. And as you can see, we can literally why ourselves into oblivion. But literally any time that I have a problem that I can't solve, whether it's with music production, whether it's in my business, or even things in my personal life, this is exactly what I do. So from this, I knew that if I wanted to finish songs and break out of loops, I had to learn how to structure. And with learning structure and with learning these new things, this is where I had to separate practice and play. For a really long time, I would say majority of the 20 years that I've been making music, I thought that creating alone was practice enough. I believe that if I just keep creating, I will get better, which is true to a degree. But what I didn't realize, by doing this, I was actually sabotaging a lot of my creativity. Art that I really, really cared about. You can ask anybody who knows me. It's no secret at all. I'm a very sensitive person, especially when it comes to my art. I mean, even after making music on this channel for several years now, one negative comment can make me question, like, oh, should I just delete the video? Like, is it actually that bad? I'm working on that. That's what therapy is for. But many of you watching this are probably sensitive to your art as well. So, as a sensitive person, I want to ask you, an artist who's also probably a sensitive person, do you want to jeopardize your art? I want you to think back to when you were learning your first instrument. How frustrating was it to learn? Were there times that you wanted to quit? Were there times that you didn't think that the frustration and the boredom was worth anything that you're building? I know I did when I first started learning guitar. So keep that in mind. I also want to ask you, when you were learning your instrument, did you start learning by writing your own music, or did you learn chords and maybe a little theory, maybe some scales, and also other people's music? 99% of you started learning before watching. Fun fact, I recently had a call with a new student to the boot camp, and I asked this question to, and he was like, no, I actually started writing my own music, and he's really talented. I felt a little embarrassed about that. But for the most of you, you probably started learning before you began writing. So it's pretty obvious that we need to do the same exact thing when it comes to music production. Why do we make this exception that we can just get in there and just start doing things and expect great things to happen? I don't know. I know I did. But otherwise, we're going to try to learn while creating things that we care about, and we're opening up the floodgates to frustration into our original work, which this will lead to significant burnout. Been there, trust me. Many of you have been there probably. So referring back to wanting to get out of 8-bar loops and get better at structuring, I practiced outside of making original music, just remaking structures of songs that I loved. And once I was able to remake them, I started studying them. What common things does this song have with this song structure? I started tweaking them. What happens if we go to this chord, or what this song gets louder? What happens if I get quieter in the section? And then once I felt really comfortable with what I was practicing, and I felt like I really understood how to build out a song structure, that's when I brought that over to my original work. And it made fleshing out ideas so much easier. I mean, just think, would a professional football team run plays that they haven't practiced first? Here in Jacksonville, if you're a Jags fan, you may answer yes to that question.
Duval.
But in all seriousness, no, that would be absolutely ridiculous. So set time aside, as boring as it is, practice the fundamentals, practice the stuff that you're not strong at. It's boring, it may feel pointless, but it is 100% necessary. So when it comes to the order in which you do things, I don't necessarily think that there is a right or a wrong way. But what I think is most important is that you build out the main idea first. In my music production bootcamp, when we start building out the song that we're going to make for the whole program, I have my students start with the structure first. And for the structure, I just have them put together chords and melody, the two main key components to a great song. Yeah, words are important, but this is about production, not about songwriting. But if you can tell a story and you can make a song feel like it's moving with just those two things, most of the time, and I've seen it in the program, a lot of the production will then take care of itself. Yes, sound selection and layering and ear candy and all these other things are important, but if we're building a song without a solid foundation to go off of, well, think about building a house the same way. Without a foundation, it could very easily crumble. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like all the time this can happen. Sometimes this works. There's plenty of videos that I have here on the channel that started without a foundation and ended up working. There's also plenty of videos where it didn't work. But in order for us to consistently build songs that have a solid ground, and I'm speaking on this from experience, we need to get good at creating solid structures. Nothing complex, nothing crazy, but solid structures. I definitely recommend building with limitations when you're, trying to build up the skill and trying to get used to it. When I'm writing personal project songs, songs that I write outside of this channel, I like to treat my demos as if I was coming to a 4-track tape cassette recorder, meaning I can only have up to 4 elements. Usually I opt for drums, guitar, bass, and vocals. I actually have a whole NPR Tiny Desk concert template in Logic that I use, because if a song sounds great in Tiny Desk, chances are it's going to sound great with more production on it. But once I have that core foundation and I'm ready to build outside of the demo, the next question that I usually ask myself is, what is the most important element to add next? Emphasis on the word important. This is where I start to add things like guitar, better drums, bass, keys, vocals. The elements that are going to do bulk of the work of the track. Then after I have everything there, then I can start adding the layers. Then I can start adding the ear candy. Sure, where I'm at with production now, I'll throw in some layers early, I'll throw in some ear candy earlier, but that's only because I am comfortable now from having to force myself to kind of have a limiting structure first. If you are newer to production, if you're kind of just getting started, these little ear candy and these layers are going to be much harder to manage because you may not have the intuition to see the whole idea clearly just yet. It takes time. Like I said, I've been making music for 20 years, and I feel like only the last 4 years I've really made solid progress. You may not know how to translate what is in your head into the DAW just yet. So focus on the important things, focus on the core structure, and then add your magic. Before I went full time with coaching musicians and running this YouTube channel, I had a marketing job that took up so much of my time. I do consider myself lucky though, because I had about an hour a day to be able to work on music. And in that hour, I had to decide, am I going to work on videos? Am I going to work on my craft? Am I going to write music? Am I going to make connections? It was honestly really overwhelming to picture any sort of future in music, because I was like, how am I supposed to make a future in music? How am I supposed to build this if I only have hardly an hour a day to do this? What eventually unlocked in my brain, and I've learned this from studying philosophy, to journaling, to talking to mentors, to therapy, is that it is not at all about the time we have. Rather, it is about what we do with the time that we have. When it came to my creative sessions, I had to plan ahead what I was going to do with that time. I would literally sit every Sunday, look at the week ahead, time block everything, understand what would move the needle just a little bit, and yeah, predetermine what I was going to walk into that week. This may seem super systematic, but it is exactly what I had to do to purposefully grow. And thankfully, doing that really paid off because I get to do all of this stuff full time now. The point of this is if we set our intention very purposefully about what we're walking into, it allows us to have a very clear focus and a very clear drive. And when we set our intentions, this is where auditing that we talked about earlier really comes in handy. If we are hyper aware of what our faults are in our music production, we can easily designate these creative sessions to what we need to work on to get better at our craft and to break through the things that are holding us back. Also, quick tip, if you are going to move forward with time blocking out your sessions, and this is really important, I promise, make the goal for that session action-based and not outcome-based. This one burned me for a really long time. Instead of saying, I'm going to write a whole song in this session, outcome, say instead, I'm going to write a few lines, action. I found this to take a lot of the pressure off of the small time that we get. And it's really helped me going with a clear mind because the pressure isn't, oh, I got to finish a song. That's what I'm supposed to do. All I got to do is just write a couple lines. Chances are I'll keep writing. And if I don't finish the song, that's not the intention. The intention was just to write a couple lines. Bam, that's a win. And one last thing when it comes to scheduling your time, try your best not to overload your days. Practicing music production and practicing your craft, it's like going to the gym. Do you see the most progress and gains by going to the gym 1 day a week for 4 hours? Or do you see more progress by going, 3 to 4 times a week for 30 minutes? I think you know the answer to that question. Your craft is the exact same way. Okay, sorry, actual last thing about scheduling and time. When it comes to scheduling and being purposeful and all of that, be realistic. It's so easy to be overly ambitious about what you're gonna do and put on a calendar, but we're human, we fail. All right, I was gonna go for a run this morning. I didn't. I slept in. You need your brain for creativity just as much as you need your heart. So be sure to schedule time for hobbies, things that you care about outside of music, time with family, time with friends. Schedule times to just go for a walk for 15 minutes. I understand wanting to fully drown yourself in your craft. Before I met my wife, I would stay up until 3, sometimes 4 in the morning working on music that would never see the light of day. And because of that, I completely burned myself out. So understand that, yeah, you're passionate, but fully drowning yourself in your craft and not doing anything else is the quickest way to burn it. The last bit I want to say in this yap session, thanks so much for coming to my TED Talk, is that just remember, this is your process. It's easy to see someone else's process online, including my own, and think that that's the way to do it.
That's the way you do it.
Look, I take pride in my process. I think that I am really good at translating what I hear in my head into the DAW. It's weird. It's like exactly what I hear in my head. But the way that I do things and the way that I think about things probably doesn't make sense to a lot of other people. For example, let me grab a guitar real quick. This is how I play a bar chord.
You need to leave!
Most people, I think, play a bar chord with this finger. I'm using my pinky for some reason, and other people can look at that and think, holy hell, that looks uncomfortable. Sure, for you, maybe it's uncomfortable, but for me, it feels natural. Trust me, I've gotten plenty of comments here on YouTube saying, you should do this instead, or you should do this, you should do that, blah, blah. Usually, they aren't wrong, but your process is about what makes you happy. You are the one creating, you are the one behind the wheel, you know what feels right, and you know what doesn't feel right. And trust me, I believe that your process is so important that I've literally built a 12-week program dedicated around building your process, which is where I would like to talk about my program, the Music Production Bootcamp. MPB is a course, cohort, and a coaching mentoring program, pretty much all in one. You have 12 weeks of lessons to unlock that walk you through the entire production process. Each week you'll receive homework on what you are learning, and I will give detailed feedback on that. There will be one-on-one coaching calls so we can discuss your progress and aim you in the direction that you want to head in. There is a thriving community right now of just really great folks. Like, I'm really surprised with how well everyone's communicating and how supportive everyone is as well. And then on top of that, we throw in weekly live group calls. And I love this because we get so many different perspectives of people creating different music and people who have completely different processes. And hearing that perspective, I think, is valuable, not just for the students, but is valuable for me as well, because it helps me make better videos. I think we have a really unique and awesome thing going on here. If you want to learn more about it, of course, link is in the description. I take a lot of pride that this program is completely gear agnostic. Meaning it doesn't matter what DAW you have, it doesn't matter what tools you have, it doesn't even matter what genre you have. Because the aim is to build a process that makes sense to you and the music that you want to produce in. We are accepting new students right now, so again, link is in the description for that. I hope this video was helpful in your creative journey. If it was, hope you consider subscribing and sticking around. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace.